We will now call to order the special call meeting for the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority for January 7th, 2022. Roll call. I'm sorry. We'll have the invocation and the flag salute at this time. Let us stand. Let us pray. Lord, we give you thanks for this day, God, a day that we have not seen before and are certain not to see again. But Lord, I pray that while this day passes, that in your infinite wisdom and through your divine intervention, you've already planned for Muskogee that better days are ahead. Father, that we are moving into an renaissance, God, of greatness for our city and for our community. And I pray, oh God, that your hand will be forever on this city and on this council. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Attention, salute,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Here. Alex Reynolds. Here. Stephanie Morgan. Tracy McGee.
Here.
Tracy Hoos.
Item number 1.
Consider approval of minutes of December 13, 2022, or take other necessary action.
I hope that we've all had an opportunity to review the minutes for the December 13, 2021 meeting. Do we have any corrections to the minutes or a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion on the minutes. Roll call.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, the item passes. Item number 2.
Discuss a plan for additional staff positions needed to assist in the administration of the Economic Development Program and provide necessary direction to staff.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chairman and trustees. We got a little handout here I want to share with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
One of the items that we had discussed and I was asked to go back and do is to identify my staffing needs for the moment. What you have in front of you in blue is the actual staff that would propose staff to report directly to me to serve some of the needs and the considerations I have for some of the projects that I have in front of me. The first one is just a general position. It's more than an admin, but this is actually the parking lot for the projects that maintains the gatekeeper for all the projects and activities, the main source to go to find out what the last status was and to flag any of the items that we need that are really urgent so the timelines are not missed. And then the next 2 are contract positions. And this is the reason why I have the names in. I've already had discussions with these individuals. These would be contract positions not to exceed $75,000 a year. They're responsible for all the costs associated with they don't have any fringe or benefits associated with these positions. And then if they, for the year, if they exceed the $75,000 in the contract, that work is still due to the MRA at their own expense. The next position, which is also a critical position, is my project manager. That's going to be working on the various programs that I have and implementations of some of the programs. Let me go back one. On the Marina Perez, the reason why that position is so critical is I've had conversations with the Tulsa Economic Development Commission, and they have agreed to lend me some of their resources to bring a program here to Muskogee. And this program is going to be part of the SCORES program where we're going to be training individuals and getting them qualified for franchise opportunities to open businesses up here in Muskogee. And I've used this same group, and it was established for me in Tulsa to establish the businesses in downtown Tulsa. So I'm gonna bring that same program here, and this individual who's gonna be managing and administrating that is specialized in SBA grants. She works closely with the SBA and other EDA opportunities, as well as other financing mechanisms for businesses. One of the things that I had a discussion with the mayor about before the meeting was establishing a program for local businesses here, a grant to help them to update their equipment for their businesses, to give them incentives to help them to grow and compete in their current environment, and to address some of the shortcomings that they may have in their operations. That's another program that's going to be coming into coming to Muskogee, and this position is going to be administrating that program as well. And so there's some other things, some other items that I have on in the works that would go towards this position. My project manager would work across the board with each of these individuals, generating the drawings, schematics, and other information that's needed. The senior planning position for the small area plans, this is a position that I don't need to fill this one immediately, but it definitely needs to be on the table. I've had some conversations with some different entities. There's been a run on the senior level planners. And then when I say planners, I mean true planners. And so right now, the ask for that position is pretty high because of the market that we're in. But I wanted to wait until that market went down, and then I plan on going to OU, planning department, to get an individual from there. I've had some conversations with the gentleman over in Arkansas that I worked with that did the downtown coordination effort for the BOK, the senior plan on that project. He's given it some thought, but he has some projects that he is currently working on and he's closing out in Little Rock. And so once he's done with that, then he's going to open himself up for some additional discussions on the possibility of coming to Muskogee and doing work here. So the reason why I said that position is critical, but it's not pressing right now, is that he's not going to be available until those projects are closed out in Little Rock. The positions to the left in the yellow, these are some positions that when I did the presentation on the Civic Center for some resources for the Civic Center to reduce the amount of overtime and to address some of the needs of the Civic Center. The first one is the banquet specialist, and this is going to be someone who's going to actually work with the event promoters and the events on any drawings that are needed, and work closely with the director on promotion. The AV production, I had worked with Ruckus to do a analysis of the Civic Center to improve the Wi-Fi and the internet connectivity so we can be able to host events that we've not been able to host because we don't have adequate Wi-Fi within the Civic Center. There's only 2 spaces within the Civic Center that receives signal. The signal reception is not throughout the Civic Center, and it's not in the main auditorium area at all. And so it limits the types of events that we can bring into Muskogee. So Ruckus is the group that did the Wi-Fi system for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I asked them to come in and give us a poor-man version of that. I anticipate getting the final numbers in next week. When I have those numbers, I plan on bringing it back to the trust for your consideration and your approval of that expenditure, so we can update the Civic Center, so we can attract other types of venues here to Muskogee that require that. Then the final position is a position that is that's dedicated solely to marketing and media, to work on the promotion of our events, work with promoters that have secured the Civic Center for their events, so we can address some of the issues and the challenges that have been discussed by the trustees on the various occasions that I had a chance to witness, about getting the word out, about coordinating with some other resources. I have a strategy to link ourselves up with the Civic Center in Oklahoma and Tulsa on some possible venues that could come here to Muskogee, as well as the Kenneth Whittier Association has a film conduit, and I'm working with them also to get linked up with them so they can send some of their attraction and events here to Muskogee, as well as something as simple as a media coloring book. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's a big deal, these media coloring books. And so I'm planning on bringing that group in as well. I'm going to hook them up with Jordan so that they can have that conversation on that and hand that off to her. But I'm trying my best to get us linked up with some of these event coordinators in Tulsa so that we can, since we're only 45 minutes away, get some consideration on some new events for Muskogee. And that our people here in Muskogee would have a variety of events, new events, that they can attend, events that they would probably drive to Tulsa to witness and experience. There's no reason why they should not be able to have that same experience here in Muskogee. And so in the future, I plan on coming before you with another package for some slight improvements to the Civic Center. I want to get away from the institutional gray. When you walk in, you're not excited. You look like something off the episode of Park and Rec. And Civic Center should have color, things that make people excited. I have a contractor in Atlanta that's going to be sending in a bid for some new decorative panels to go into the main corridor of the Civic Center. And once I have that, I plan on putting together a portfolio for the trustees to take under consideration for slight enhancements that are not very expensive, but necessary to kind of change the aesthetics and the mood when people come into the Civic Center and have that experience. So that will be coming to you separately. Is there any questions about the staffing?
The only question I have, I don't know if it's more of a question or direction. I'm going to openly say to the authority, I'm extremely interested to move on the office project manager and the project manager for funding structure immediately. But what I think we need is to be certain that we have, from Mr. Tucker or Mr. Miller at some point, what is the total budget that we actually have to work with that's coming into the MRA? Because I think that's going to be key for Mr. Davis and the rest of us to help prioritize which positions we move forward on and in what order, so that we can be certain that we have everything that he needs to have for him to be successful, as well as for us to make the right decisions that we need to make. And the reason why I'm saying it about the office project manager, right now Mr. Davis is his own secretary, he's his own project manager, he said parking lot. And we have to move on that, I think, yesterday to get that done, as well as on the project manager funding structure position, because that person is going to be critical in a lot of ways to our existing small businesses in Muskogee, to be certain that they have the resources that they need to be successful, so that as we grow as a community, they don't get engulfed in a situation where they can't be successful either. And so I don't know if we know that today as far as the funding, but we need to know that pretty quick.
Yeah, no, so we do know that was actually part of the budget amendments that you I shouldn't say you, the MRA actually, yes, and the City Council both passed in December, transferring all the available funding in all the MRA budget at that time. I'm pulling it up here on my computer here, so
Mike,
give you
is it correct
specifics.
to say that that was the actual funding that was already in the account that came over? Because I'm not seeing a change in the amount. When we had the initial discussion, it was to present my head count and we would find the money for the head count. So I don't want to touch the operation funds for the funds available for the existing projects.
So
that we have.
every penny that was dedicated in our economic development fund was transferred over.
Yes, but that's not the funds we're talking about.
I'm
It was
not-
communicated during the same exchange when we had with the parks, that you guys need 7 positions, we'll find the money for the 7 positions. By the way, Mr. Davis needs staff, and we'll find the money for his staff.
Well, what we need today is to be certain that we know what we have to work with today. So that was my question. So today, what do we have to work with?
I'm pulling that up right now, sir. So, and again, this is information that we had from last month, and I'm pulling it back up just directly from our city website, so you can all do the same.
And that's fine. And again, you know, the reason we need that more so today is to be certain that we can substantiate the 2 positions that I referenced. And we want to be certain that we know what we have for salaries, we know what we have for projects, so forth and so on. Does that make sense to the authority?
My concerns would be, we're saying 2 positions, but look like he needs more than 2, look like he needs about 5. And I am saying that we want to be able to fund, we've said it when we brought this to the council, before we moved it over, is that this is what we wanted to do, and that we should, that we would fully fund it. So we want to make sure that Mr. Davis is able to put his staff together, fund it properly, so that this can be a success. If I'm not mistaken, I can echo Roy's sentiments and Mr. Van over there, that he need help, and I think we all agree to that, and that we should fund it, and that the money's there. We also, I'll just go ahead and throw this in there, talked about making sure that I'll go with what Roy said, that he need a space to do it at. So I think that since we're here, we need to really do what we agreed to do.
And no one's suggesting otherwise, because even Mr. Davis said all 5 of those can't be filled right now. And so
Right.
we're talking about priority in terms of actually running an office.
Yeah, I'm talking about the office space, but when you jump down here and you got these pink as well, so I'm just saying giving him more, just the 2.
Now, the pink, that's Civic Center, that's different than what we're talking about directly for economic development, am I correct?
See, the items in the pink are the Civic Center items, and then the items in the blue are the direct reports for me and for the MRA. And so I would like to make this request, that the trustees would consider, as I stated before, the senior planning position and the assistant planner position. I want those secured, but I don't intend to fill those positions immediately. It's going to take some time. But in terms of the other 4, I definitely need some movement on those positions right away. I have quite a few projects. I got quite a few prospects, but I need to have resources to do this. I mean, I'm working from, and the mayor can attest to this, from 5:30 to 11 o'clock at night. That's what I'm doing. And in the course of that, I'm having meetings with people in Tulsa. I'm meeting with developers in Oklahoma City. I'm eating up the highway at night. When I leave here, I need some resources. And like right away. There's a lot of people who are encouraged. They're excited. They want to see some things happen. And I don't want to keep telling them that I'm still waiting to get my resources and my people in place to deliver this. In fact, next week you're going to hear about one of those projects. And I'm going to need some resources.
Leon, last I remember, you were happy with the third floor up here for right now for your office space. Is that still, are you still good with that?
That would support me, support myself, but it wouldn't support my staff that I would bring on to have a presence. And one of the things I'm wanting to do is I want the MRA to be seen by the public as the entity that it is, a viable entity that's important to the community. So they need to know where the MRA office is located. And later today, hopefully, I plan on doing, I'm still going and looking at different spaces. And I hope to be looking at some space at the BOK later on this afternoon to see if something there would work. Because I want the MRA to have a space where you can meet, a space that you can have community involvement, a space where the people that I'm working with in terms of helping them to establish their businesses can come and utilize the MRA space as a resource for the community. And then a place where I can bring instruction to the MRA office to educate and to walk people through the necessary paperwork. Because right now, I'm meeting with people at their banks to help them get qualified for different things. I want that space to be a place where I can bring the bank representatives to work with the people in the community to help them get empowered to move forward with their dreams and their investments they want to make for Muskogee. And I understand this is something that's different here, but these are programs that I've done before. And so I know the value of these programs that I want to bring here. I just want to have that physical presence for the MRA. And so I intentionally kept everything very, very lean and functional with no waste. Now, if we should take a shift and take on some greater responsibilities for some other things, then I may come back for a specialized skill set at that time. For right now, in terms of what we have in front of us right now and some of the discussions that I'm having right now, these are the positions that I need. And in terms of the Civic Center positions, I can tell you this right now. Last week we had a flood. Pipes busted. I'm down there in my boots. I'm watching the 3 guys work 24 hours. They didn't go home. And then once we had the repairs, I'm watching these guys rotate space heaters to keep the pipes warm so we don't have another break. They did not go home. Then I had to rotate people to allow them just to go sleep and then bring them back up to heat those pipes. And this is all in conjunction with the normal operations. So they're wearing the same clothes they had on the previous day. Now that's the type of dedication that we have here from these individuals. So I want to make sure that I'm doing my part to represent them, to help them. I commend them, and myself, I've eaten up the road myself just to make sure that I could bring food or whatever I could offer to them. I can't fix a boiler. I can't do any of those things, but I can bring them food and encouragement. And so that's what I've been doing. So I ask that even on the Civic Center side, that we at least fund one of those positions. Because the amount of overtime that's being worked, it is very real. It is very real, and it's a high number. And so some would say, hey, we go bring a temp, or we can bring somebody with community service hours. You bring those in, we're wasting the resources. We've got to watch them, we've got to train them, we've got to go find them when they stray off. That is not what we need. We need people. And so even with this staff that's proposed, the 3 additional, that's still a skeleton. That's still a pretty skinny skeleton. And so one of the plans that I have is, and I discussed this with the mayor prior to the meeting just this morning, was I've had conversations with the Indian VOTEC, and they're going to actually start training, specific training. I'm going to grow the skill sets of the individuals that are in the Civic Center. So they're going to learn different things. They're going to learn things that they don't know to make them more valuable for the MRA and have them cross-train in a facet of different things. So we'll have that skill set in place at the at the Civic Center for the MRA.
Mr. Member, I recognize.
Yes, Mr. Van.
I definitely agree with you on that, Mr. Davis, because those gentlemen over there at the Civic Center, they put in a lot of hours. They're hard workers. They definitely need some help. Definitely need some help. Seriously. I go over there sometime and I talk to them and stuff, and it don't make no sense to work people like that. They're not Hebrew slaves. You know, they need some help.
Yeah. And the cold weather has really taken things to a different level. Because I don't know how old that boiler is, but I know it's past its useful life, and the chiller as well. I used to be responsible for the Greenwood Center and the Greenwood properties, and I know that some of this equipment out there is much older. It was old at that time, at this facility. And so next week I'm having a meeting with the company that's going to look at that system and give us some suggestions in terms of how to improve and a better support than what we have right now. My understanding, we had a Honeywell contract with Honeywell, multi-year contract with Honeywell, and yet the Honeywell stuff does not work. It does not work. And so, in my mind, we have wasted dollars in paying them when we should have canceled their contract and put someone else in. And so I'm not about to waste the MRA's money for a contract and we don't get the support that we need. And then the last episode we went through with the flood, that support was not accessible. And so that's something I'm planning on fixing.
No, those guys there that's working at the Civic Center, they're not working on the boilers and chillers, are they? Don't the city of Muskogee, I know when I worked at the hospital, we had a boiler man, and he done certain things, but we had companies out of Tulsa come in, and they serviced those boilers and chillers and kept them going. But no, those guys don't do that, do they?
Well, the automated, the device that's supposed to turn them on, it doesn't do it. So that stuff is turned on manually.
Why come it doesn't do it automatically?
That's a Honeywell issue that I was talking about.
Yeah. Those people need to be one working on it. I mean, I ain't seen that. I wouldn't, like I said, I worked in maintenance out at the hospital 5 years. And I didn't work on, I mean, I've had to get in and clean the boilers and stuff like that before. I was knowing a lot about the boilers and chillers. I didn't know that too much about it, but I knew what the hospital furnished as far as keeping those boilers up out there and those chillers.
Right.
You know, one man, I don't know, they couldn't do it.
Yeah, and that's part of the specialized training that I'm requesting from the Indian VOTEC. It's to cross train them in various aspects. Some of the things that we have a need for, we may have a need for. I think it's important that they have that knowledge.
It is. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I transfer back up to
No,
you.
you're fine, Mr. Van. No, I think those are all adequate questions. The existing Honeywell contract for those equipment items, is that contract currently with the city?
Yes.
And so the city still operates or is responsible for that maintenance. Is that correct?
Yes, we could spend an hour on the Honeywell contract, or 2 or 3 or 5, and it's a known problem that Mr. Tucker and Tammy and I have been dealing with for years, and we're near the end of our obligation with them.
Well, I would suggest that you check with the Muskogee, St. Francis Hospital and see who those people that come in and work on their chillers and boilers, because I guarantee you, they're at the top of the line.
We do have people that are contracted to do those things.
On city time, or I'm talking about regular contractors, right?
So
Not city employees, but I'm talking about regular contractors.
Yes, correct. We have people that specialize in those that work on our boilers here, yes.
Something ain't right, Mr. Miller, if we got them problems like this over at the Civic Center. Something ain't right.
No, I agree, and we have 150 buildings, and every day there's something wrong with with more than one of them, and we try and keep up with them. Yes, sir.
Like I say, it's one thing about, when you worked in the field of doing different things, for as welding, maintenance, and stuff like that, you pick up a lot of little knowledge, and stuff, and that's one thing, access up here on this council. I have just a little bit of knowledge, because like I said, I've welded steam pipe out to the hospital. You know, that's what I went to school for, to learn, trade and stuff. You do it on the job. But I'm just saying, it pays to know a little of everything, and that's why I can tell you, if somebody don't know what they're doing, they don't need to be working on no boiler, no chiller. I turn the floor, I'm done.
Yes,
So I
sir.
guess I have a question here. On the, you say 4 positions, do you have a budget to those 4 positions about how much money we?
On the 2 contract positions on the mayor, the minor Perez and the Carl Dugan, those are contracts $75,000, not to exceed $75,000. If they go over the budget, that's on them. No benefits, no nothing. And then the office parking lot position, I have that one at $48,000, and then the project manager position is at $65,000. And this is being consistent with the standard set for PMI, which is the Project Management Institute.
So Mike Miller, you was going to give us some numbers.
Sure. Yeah, so the money that was transferred over from economic development for operations was $288,193.39. There was a transfer in the restricted account that can only be used for incentives and with a vote of the council, and is used for debt service. It's $526,588.53. And there was a surplus forward money that we had not spent in previous years, transferred over $351,875.76. So the operations budget, which is where where salaries would come from, again, it was transferred a partial year amount, right? We had the amount set aside that had already been expended through the year before December. Those budget transfers were made in December. Was $288,193.39. So on the big picture, it was not contemplated that we would add 4 to 6 positions, or that budget would support 4 to 6 positions. So the question that you've asked is very relevant, is what would be needed? What would the council need to appropriate to fill those positions? And so we're hearing that today, what might be needed to be appropriated. And when we transferred this over, the authority was given to the general manager of the MRA to adjust those budgets. If there need to be more in salaries than contract services or vice versa, he can move money around within line items in that budget. As long as, I should say, except for the restricted money that has to be voted on by council.
Now, just to be correct, in my understanding of reading of the bylaws and our agreement, and you've already stated it, the monies that came over were the actual operation monies that were in place before. Those monies did not take in consideration of any of these positions being added to it. So, as I stated before, we intend to stay the course in our normal operations. And I like what you just said. Now it's up to the trustees to determine how much money needs to be reappropriated and brought over. Now, at the time that we did the transfer, I did throw that flag up, but we could not meet with the MRA to discuss the staffing till today. And so we're having that discussion today. So an accounting adjustment can be made to reappropriate some funds, additional funds, to cover these positions. That's what I'm asking for today.
Okay.
Mr. Davis, could you pull your mic up some, if you don't mind, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I can hear you.
Yeah, I had from a past surgery on my mouth, I don't have any feeling. And so I had to adjust my volume. You have to tell me. Because sometimes I'll yell at you. No, I don't want to yell at you. So I'm trying to guess.
So I guess it comes down to asking this question. Give us the number that we're talking about that we need to make the adjustment for. I hear you say 48,000 here.
Yeah.
These two is going to go up to 75,000 each. Can't go over that.
Yeah, the 275, the 2 contract positions are flat rate, 75,000. The office manager project parking lot is 48,000 with fringe, and then the project manager is 65,000 with fringe.
Okay, I got you.
And Leon, you're also requesting some money for a new office?
I'm glad you said that, and I won't know what that number is until a location has been selected, and to know what that rate is going to be. There were some buildings I looked at with the help of Dylan, some existing buildings, and then I looked at some space at the mall. I looked at different options. You know, Muskogee is really limited in terms of available office space. The space that I had not looked at is to be okay. And like I said, I hope to look at that space this afternoon. And so in fact, the mayor has offered to make a contact for me to open up the space. And so I will look at that and see if it can house it. Because like I said, the space I'm looking for is a wide open space that can be a community space. The workspace is going to be the MRA's office, but this is going to be a resource center for the community as well.
So when I do my math, I get 263,000. Am I about right? Without the rental property or the position, office space.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I haven't done the math in my head. My math is not good right now. I'm thinking about some stitches I have right now. But I would also like to reiterate my request for one of the positions in pink for the Civic Center to be filled.
That would come out of their the Civic Center budget, correct?
The operating budget is for their events and their normal function right now. They didn't have there's no funds allocated for any of these positions across the board.
And what number do you have on that?
The number on that is going to be consistent with what the industry standard was going to be on there. I don't see that position being paid more than $42,000.
How are those positions being paid now? Because the two janitorial positions.
Yeah, their line item budgets and their current operations when it was transferred over. The items in pink were our new positions, and I had been added over. And this is part of the discussion we had when I made the presentation to the trustees over the operations and some of the things that we can do to enhance not only the operations, but to address some of the issues that they have at the Civic Center in terms of lack of resources and beautification, and to bring new events and bigger, better venues to the Civic Center and what it would take to get there, to bridge that gap. And so those gap items, those bridge items will be coming up on a later date on another agenda.
I'm playing catch up here. I do apologize. I've been out of town and traveling quite a long ways to get here for this meeting today, and I'm completely unprepared. Don't even have a pen to add up all of our math. I would like to see some better numbers about what we are going to put on you. I can't agree more with Leon that he's got a lot of projects on his plate, and he's doing a great job with what he can do, and he definitely needs some more help. An office manager, person to help oversee all the projects, and a couple of other people for sure. And we all know the Civic Center definitely needs, this is the first I've even heard that we had a flood last week. And anyway, I would certainly like some more information and some more hard numbers. I'd like Mike to get us some numbers together and show us what we have in the account now that we've transferred over, and then a better understanding of what Leon needs. Also, hopefully, if you do get in this afternoon to see the BOK, we might have some more information on that. In my packet for the Monday meeting, did I see that we have an MRA? Are we touching on MRA Monday as well?
MMA.
MMA. I don't know if that's enough time for us to get any information together and have some more numbers where we can look at by Monday, but I would like to see some more. I'd like to ask a few questions and get some more information on this so we can move rapidly and get Leon the help that he needs.
And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Tucker and Mr. Miller, on those restricted funds, when the council authorized them, they authorized them as restricted. So then the council would need to say, we're going to change how those funds can be used.
No, the ordinance was amended to allow the redevelopment authority
Okay.
that power.
So we can adjust the 526 to 351.
Well, no, what I'm saying is the redevelopment authority has the ability to vote on, may I?
Yes.
The redevelopment authority has the vote on whether those funds are spent, those that from the economic opportunity account. But if there is going to be a transfer of money from economic opportunity to the economic development fund, then that would require an ordinance change, because those percentages that come out are set by ordinance. But they can be changed, but those have to be changed by the council.
And we'd need an agenda item to address that.
Correct.
Okay. So I think to Mr. Reynolds' point, we are ready to move, but we can't move until we have better information on the numbers, and then we have to decide what the numbers are going to actually be.
And just for a point of clarification, this agenda item was a no action item. It was simply direction for staff. So that was the point of the discussion. So we could sort of identify all the things that we needed to put together in a specific action agenda item in the future.
Okay. So what direction do we need to give to Mr. Davis so that when we come back, we have an actionable item with everything we need and be ready to move forward?
And I
That's a
was,
question for the MRA. I can't ask your question.
and I would also like to ask, on that note, when is that back? When is the back? We need to come back as soon as possible. And you know, how quick can you guys get us that information? Cause
Well, the existing information exists already. I mean, Leon has access to the budgets. He knows what's in the Civic Center budget. He knows what's in the Economic Development budget. There are expenses that have come out of the Economic Development budget since the council's made the adjustments. So, for instance, some people were formerly being paid out of Economic Development. That only person being paid out of there now is Leon. So there's been changes in funding available. So there is existing funding that could potentially be applied towards any additional staff members, but it certainly wouldn't be enough. And so that's part of the determination is I would ask Mr. Davis to look at his existing budgets and see where the existing money needs to go and where it needs to be allocated and how much can be allocated towards additional staff or not. And that would help alleviate the need for additional funding elsewhere. And then the question then becomes, what is the dollar amount needed? And I don't know that. This is the first that we're hearing today is the number of employees and the compensation of the employees. And I don't know off the top of my head if the current Civic Center budget could handle one. I don't think it could handle three. I know that the current economic development budget can't handle 6 new employees, and so that's how we've got to figure out is what do we? I think whoever said it right before, take what we have, what do we have available, what do we need on top of what is already available to fill that gap, and then the council has that opportunity to allocate those resources. And then the big decision would be, and Mayor, it sounds like you may have already thought through this, is this repurposing economic development funds, because that way we're not having to take money out of general fund or other projects or other budgets. So that's more of a question for me, because it would be hard to find that significant amount of money in other budgets in the middle of the year.
Well, all along, our conversation has been that we would use whatever funds were traditionally available for economic development and empowerment to be certain that we can use that to offset any costs that we had under the new structure. And so what I want us to get to today is to be certain that whatever questions we have regarding information we need to bring back, we do that now, so then when we come back, we're not having 3 or 4 other meetings. We're having one meeting that addresses the budget, the staffing needs, the contracts, the something else, but whatever we need to get, whatever we need done. Because the council, the MRA has to live with the fact that however we purpose this money and whatever's left is what we have left until more comes in. And so we need to be certain that we're given the correct direction today, so that when we come back, we have time to review it. We're looking at it one time. We're given everything that we need to make this happen.
And so the other thing I would just be clear is that whatever those numbers are for salary, we would obviously need to make sure we get those to run through our system, so we know. I assume we're going to be paying them insurance, at least maybe not the contractors, but the full-time employees. All the extra benefits would add up again as we're doing a budget number, just to make sure we're being accurate.
And to Vice Chair's point, when is when? So in other words, we're going to reconvene when
Most definitely.
to be able to look at this. Because I know you all can meet without me. I'll be on travel Wednesday through Saturday.
So we just need more information than we've had until this meeting started, so we could do anything on our end.
I will step out and say this. I'm tracking everything this Mike is saying, but I'm pretty good with numbers and details. I don't want to rehash this. I just want to be clear that what we're talking about is new money. I don't intend on canceling projects that we have going forward right now, because we have projects that are tied to our economic development operating fund projects. We have projects that are tied to our civic center activity. This is new money. And so I just want to make sure that the trust and everyone is clear on this. This is new money. We've stated this twice so far, but then our conclusion wraps it into, okay, let's not do any projects. We're not going to have staff and not have funding to do projects. And so our economic development projects are what we're going to deliver for the MRA into the community. So those funds, these positions are unbudgeted positions because of the action that we took to establish the MRA and to be able to deliver projects. And so what I was tasked for was tell me the heads you need, and we will find the money for this operation. And I'm not asking for filling every one of the positions. I've already stated my case on which positions they are, but I'm asking for one additional position with the Civic Center. And so I'm doing what I was asked to do, and I will put together a report of the positions and some solid numbers associated with that. And I believe that the soonest we can get on, Roy, what's the soonest date we can have another meeting?
48 hours.
48 hours, so it'll be Monday can we do Monday?
You can do Monday after 2, and that's lightning fast, because we got to get the agenda out.
So for Mr. Reynolds' request, we can do it Monday and have that one item on there where I bring back the costs associated with the positions, and then Mr. Miller would go into the general fund or wherever and find us the money.
Well, we're not authorizing that. We're not saying that. So let me be clear about when I say new money, I don't even know what that term means. We're talking about how can we allocate what we have with what we have already designed for economic development and opportunity. I'm not talking about going back to the general fund or doing anything.
Well, this is what, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
I think that's why we need to have, I'm not calling the meeting Monday. I think that's why we need time to review it as an MRA before we get to Monday. So that when we do sit down, the conversation is, we've all reviewed, any questions about what we've reviewed, and then we move on from there. That's just my opinion. Ms. McGee, you were trying to say something?
Yes, I'm hearing what everyone is saying, so let me go back over here. When we looked at this restricted money, you said it comes from what account again? Opportunity?
We have the Opportunity Fund. There's
Okay.
two different funds within our Economic Development account.
Okay, so when we deal with the Opportunity Fund, this is projects that's been identified. They can only be used for that, correct?
So there's been, the council's budgeted to pay for economic development projects that were already underway, including our property that we own, our payments that we're making on that, and then additional funds are for future projects, for incentives or whatever kind of, and there's very specific rules that the council has set about how we can spend that money in the future.
Okay, so we know that that money is kind of marked. So now we're talking about bringing on employees to the MRA. So therefore, that restricted money is not for employees in my mind, because if you start taking money from this, then you're not going to have any money to do projects. Because we're looking at, if I do my math, I would just give you $325,000, and we're ready to have some employees on the MRA, and we're ready to go. So do we have, or can we make an adjustment to the budget to come up with $325,000 to be able to accommodate the employees? Because if we start messing with restricted money, we're going to find out we can't do projects. We got employees with no projects. I mean, they're just...
So if you're asking me, do we have $325,000 that we, that's really a question for the rest of your group. If there's $325,000 of something else that's in the city budget that we don't want to do, that we want to do this instead. That's not a question for me to answer.
I have a suggestion. The trust took action to bring economic development under the MRA. I think everyone agreed with that. My old position under the city is a vacant position intended to be filled. I would suggest that we take that position and we can fund 2 positions from the salary of that position. Especially since that's economic development position, and economic development is under the MRA.
We have not had that conversation, so I don't know what that is.
Yes.
In fact, we're not going to have that conversation because the agenda item clearly says that we're talking about staffing for the MRA.
Right.
So what we're going to talk about, according to the agenda item and to the pleasure of the committee, is what do we need to do to come back and have an intelligent conversation about what we need to go forward.
I guess my question to add to what the mayor's saying, where's the money? I mean, we're going to just cut straight. How do we get to the money to fund what we need? I mean,
Right.
cut.
And
We need the money.
Because today we don't know. So that's what I'm saying. We need to be able to come back and say, here's an option, here's an option, here's an option.
I think
Not
that
talking about
discussion
the city.
I think that discussion would be, I wouldn't trust that position to Roy. That's who I would entrust to come up with that solution.
Well,
You're a budget expert, Roy.
let me chair my meeting before it goes south. This is all of our team going to make this work. Period. So whatever we need to come back with, whoever we need to come back from, as long as we get to where we need to go. So I'm asking the last time, so we could be clear to stay on the subject, what do we need to give to Mr. Davis in terms of direction so that we can come back and have an intelligent conversation in an intelligent time frame so that we have these questions answered by the time we come back to the meeting?
Let's see the budget, what the current MRA budget is, what money that's in there, how's it allocated, and then what additional funding, if additional funding is needed, what additional funding is there need?
What's the difference?
Needed?
At this portion of where we found ourselves, we don't want to fail. And so we want a picture, you know, whatever it takes to get us there by whatever day that's Monday, after 1 o'clock, Tuesday. We have come too far. And we see that we have gotten to a point where we wanted to make MRI better, we wanted to reach some goals, and it's going to cost us some more money. And so that's what we're going to have to come up with. What we have is not going to, we're not going to be able to operate in a new vision. We got Mr. Davis here with a new vision, and we need to find a way to get to that point, you know, by whatever that next date is, you know, and let us decide, you know, what to cut, what to keep. But whatever we do, we want to be successful because we've come too far. Not to fail at this point. We want to be successful.
I can prepare what Trustee Stout has requested I can tell you I can put together a report of what's currently in there and what we have projected activity associated with that budget.
I think that would
And then,
help give us that
yeah,
picture.
I understand what you want, and I can provide that information to you, to the trustees on Monday.
Sounds good.
If we meet Monday.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, this anything that's going to be required of me to help participate, I'm going to be as soon as we're done here. I've got a doctor's appointment in Tulsa, and then Monday we've got our regular work day. We're trying. I want to make sure that we have enough time devoted to looking at these new numbers that we can do that with a clear head.
Like I stated before, I'm very competent with numbers myself, and this is not big math. I can prepare this without the participation of my city manager.
But we will.
We will what, Mayor?
We will have everybody's participation.
So are we saying, just let me be clear. What role do the city manager have in the MRA, Roy Tucker? He has none, Mayor. And so I'm saying that if he can prepare us a budget, what Councilor Stout said, let him prepare it for us to have it. I think we need the city manager to let us know if we need additional money, where we can get that from. I think that becomes his role. But in the MRA, he has no role.
Yeah, and I didn't say that Mr. Davis would not present those numbers, but if we get to a point where we have to facilitate funding from other sources outside of what we already have, we have to have the city manager's input because that won't be out of our pot.
I agree 100%. So that's why I'm saying we should be able to still get what Mr. Davis is going to present to us on Monday. And Mike can tell us, you can tell us what you got, Mike, on the numbers. You have doctors, so you can tell us this week, can you finish out the numbers for us? Next week, Tuesday?
Yeah. So I have no idea because this is the first I've heard of any of it the same time as you. So I'm trying to find out what I need to do and be ready to do that. I'm on vacation all next week.
Okay.
And I have a doctor's appointment this afternoon. So I'm not trying to throw any obstacles in the way, but these are long scheduled things. And so we had a special call meeting, today at noon to find out new information. So I want to try and get it done as soon as I can, but you guys have also given me a whole lot of other things to do between now and the time I go on vacation on Tuesday.
May I make a recommendation at this point? So we have accomplished what we set out in this agenda. We've stretched as far as we could go in this agenda item. So we know that to be, like I said, successful is our goal. We have a lot of work to do. So I would like to suggest that we come back when the mayor is back, once Mike gets a chance to do whatever he needs to do with the assistance of Roy, give Leon an opportunity to meet with the Bank of Oklahoma and find out what that space is so we can go ahead and build this redevelopment, economic development vision like we need to. I would like to recommend that we come back on Tuesday the 18th. The 17th we won't meet because that's a holiday Monday. If we can come back on Tuesday the 18th with another special call to give us all an opportunity to get all the pieces together and have a direct agenda item that we'll be able to address instead of a vague direct staff so we can get it done. If the 18th of January would be sufficient with everyone.
Can I make a request?
Sure.
And I don't want to continue to belabor this, but I want to make this request. In terms of the contract positions, if at all possible, I would like the trustees to consider allowing me to engage the contractors because I have some timelines that I'm trying to meet, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to redirect the resources that I'm bringing in to meet with these contractors when I'm going to be able to get them back. And so my intent was to have this thing, their activities going as soon as possible. so I can meet some of the obligations of some of the requests I have in front of me.
Or is there any type of motion that we can take to get us there?
Unfortunately, this agenda item, when it was prepared, was for direction of staff only, and presumably the contractors will be working for the trustees. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so, under the bylaws, you all have to take action to hire people who are employees of yours, which is you can do, but just not under this agenda item. And so, what could happen, though, is staff be directed to take steps to prepare the employment agreements, get them ready to put on the agenda, engage those individuals to make sure when their start date is, and set those. So there are some things that can be done in anticipation of the council or the authority taking action to approve those contracts, because those will need to be presented to you all to approve if they are going to be contractors of the trust, which is what I understand they will be. So those can all be ready and approved by the 18th, if not sooner.
So is that taken as direction of staff? So
If-
we don't need a motion.
Unless there are other comments or
Would that work,
discussion on
Leon?
it.
Be able to get
I'm
done?
gonna have to make some phone calls. I mean, the people I have coming in, they're not from Muskogee to engage these programs. And so the 18th is gonna push that opportunity out the window for now. So I
Well,
don't
you
know
do-
when I'm gonna be able to bring them back in, but I'll have that discussion with them this afternoon.
Well, you don't have authority to contract them without the trustees, Leon, but you do have the authority to hire temps. And so you could run them through a temp agency until the following Tuesday, when you could get the council to approve their contract. And that way they're being paid, but only on a temporary basis. And so they're not true employees nor true contractors. So there are ways to do it.
So I think you could take that as direction to staff, that if that's the only option to keep them on board, fine, as long as they know it's temporary, which I'm sure you'll explain that to them until we have a more permanent solution.
Yeah, now, I will talk to Roy about how that process works.
Okay. Any other direction, questions on this agenda item?
Mayor, just to clarify, we are not currently being directed to place an agenda item to put on the city council to consider allocating additional resource to MRA.
Not until we know
Yet.
what the request
Okay,
is
I
going
just
to be.
I didn't want to miss any agenda items, so.
Right. Other questions?
I have a question real quick. I would like to know more from Mr. Miller about where I don't want us to just vote that we're going to give X amount of money to this new project without knowing where that money's coming from.
Yes.
So I really want to be able to see, so we can see what there is in the budget, what can be cut, where there are any additional funds that we may not, rainy day funds or something we may be able to look at, so we can actually do this. I want to make sure that Mr. Davis has the best opportunity to be successful, so we can get this project up and off the ground. So I definitely want to see where that's coming from, not just make a motion that we're going to fund it and then run around and try to figure that out after the fact.
Absolutely, and that's part of why I would look to you as a policy-making body to help me with those decisions, because at the end of the day, it's going to be you voting that we need to spend less money in X area and more money in this area. So I definitely want your feedback as I look at that as well.
Will you have that ready for us by the 18th? From what Mr. Deputy Mayor's asking?
So by the 18th, I'll be ready with everything that comes out that I get from Mr. Davis, if I get a number, whatever it can be.
Thank you, sir.
All right, further discussion before we adjourn.
I have one question, and I apologize for my ignorance on this. In terms of, is there a violation for me to send the trustees an email, all of them an email at the same time with information? Am I violating anything by doing that?
No, but as I teach in my open records and open meeting, blind copy so that nobody hits reply all and you engage in a discussion. And it's not you engaging in a discussion with them, it's them
us engaging with
engaging
each
in a
other.
discussion with each other. So just blind carbon copy everybody so there's no accidental reply to all.
Okay.
Roy, follow-up question on that. If Leon feels like he needs to have a discussion, can he break it into two little groups? Can he have two little email chains going where we're kind of brainstorming together, but
Let's-
not to the level of a quorum?
Less than a majority, yes.
Okay.
But that's gonna be more than 2, because you got 9.
Okay, so if you do, if you're out of pocket or some of us are out of pocket, but you feel like you need to brainstorm with us, you can throw several of us in we have to stay under the quorum amount, so that would be 3 small groups.
Okay.
So you can interact separately with 3 small groups, but not as a whole.
And also, to point out, Alex, that's one of the functions of the executive committee as well, to kind of serve as a sounding board for some of those introductory things. So there's already a small group kind of set up, and so there would just need to be a couple other ones to convey that information.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I just wanted to know by sending the email. That's
Right.
all I wanted to do.
And that was a valid question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know about sending emails out to the trustees.
So the other question before, Mr. Chairman, you adjourn is, the meeting that'll be set up, special call meeting on the 18th, what time?
Needs to be 9 if it's gonna be on the 18th. It needs to be 9 in the morning or later in the afternoon because we've got tribal visitors in that day.
Okay, that's why I wanted to
And
bring that up.
they're gonna take up a huge swath of the late morning to the early afternoon. So, committee, do you wanna do 9 in the morning or do y'all wanna do 3 in the afternoon? Three over here.
9 is fine.
I got one quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Right quick. Now, Mr. Davis, he's over the Civic Center, correct?
Yes.
He's over the Civic Center. I just want to make that point. Mr. Davis, you're over the Civic Center, and what I heard today, I have a little problem. Next time a water leak happens, they should call you, correct? Am I correct up here?
I don't know what the question is.
I asked you just a while ago, Mayor, is Mr. Davis over the Civic Center? You said yes.
Should his
Davis?
employees call him?
Do what?
Should his employees call him?
He needs to know, if he's over something,
That's what happened.
he needs to be called and say, this is happening, just like that busted line. You should have been called and notified, correct?
Yeah, I was.
That's
He
what
was.
happened.
Oh, okay.
I was.
I
I
must have
was
misunderstood
called
that.
and I communicated to the executive committee that
Okay.
it was a break.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Yep.
Okay, close my case.
Okay.
All right.
9 o'clock on the 18th.
All right.
Everybody good? We're adjourned.